Hope this doesn't matter. This one. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. How are you doing today? My name is Eitayo Ogunyemi, and I'm pleased to be with you to anchor this conversation. If you've been thinking to write your book, if you are an expert and you have been putting people through things over the years, or even consulting for people, and you have not put together a content, author the content to become yours, then this conversation might just be for you. And if you're out there and you know you do stuff, you have some ideas, yet you think you are far from the kind of knowledge that is needed to author a book, well, this session is also for you, because I'm going to be guiding you on how possible this project is. And in this country, I want to tell you as well that you need an additional means to send your word out to audience you may not even be privileged to appear before. And this is one of the ways to be relevant and to give your quota in making for a better world. I hope you are ready for this conversation, because I'm going to be using myself as an example, and at the end of this conversation I would have been able to guide you on how to author your book within 3 months. Are you excited? If you're excited about this, get into the comment box and just let me see how excited you are. And remember, love this, like it, share it, and make your comments. Let's keep it interactive. This is how we benefit. So let me start with my own story. How many years ago I started out teaching people, volunteering here and there, guiding people on how to use the knowledge of the law to have competitive advantage. So I was teaching business law, I was teaching property law, and I was even holding law school students by the hand and teaching them. Over the years, I was just doing all of these things for fun. I was not making a dime out of all of these things, even though sometimes I would have to drive to a venue, and maybe the best I would get would be maybe a bottle of water, and sometimes I'm not getting anything. So I was so passionate about this that each time I taught my students, they usually would come to meet me and say, that was a powerful session. They usually would come to meet me to tell me that, look, I've never heard anyone break law down the way you have. Some will even meet me and tell me that, look, I have always despised anything law. I remember the story of somebody that told me that he started law and he had to pull out because the whole thing was just so complicated and convoluted. And then, you know, some other people would mention that you people look like a secret cult. You have this language you use that makes us to look like strangers, and so it's like in your order of things in that industry, you people are secluded, isolated people that discriminate the public. I hope I haven't used too much grammar in this conversation, but the point is this is how people feel, and I don't know if you also feel that way. But each time I climb the podium to hold people by the hand and begin to simplify the subject of law, there is this freedom, there is this liberty that comes from them. And I did this for good 8 years with great passion, and always thinking to myself that even though I am doing this wonderful thing, I still have more to learn, you know. And you can't blame me for that, because what happened to me is just like, look, it's like I'm sharing knowledge, and I'm telling myself that the knowledge I'm sharing is not sufficient to write a book as voluminous as this book, right? You can see that clearly, right? It's not as voluminous as this book. So I usually tell myself that for this author to have written this, he must have mastered many things over the years, and that I need to also master many things over the years before I'll be able to write something. And this was the mindset that I carried on with for many years, that and this limited me. And this could be your story as well, thinking that you do not have sufficient knowledge to write it. You do not have sufficient knowledge to be able to share something. Yes, I was in your shoes. And let me tell you, now I've authored 2 books, And all of that didn't change. Even till now, I still feel I am unworthy. I don't have sufficient knowledge to write it. But something else changed in me, which helped me to author 2 books. And that's what I want to start with. Helping you to face those limiting mind blocks so that you can be ready to author your book in the next 3 months. So this whole thing didn't change. What changed really was the fact that I became more afraid. And why did I become afraid? Imagine you have now mastered what you present in the past 8 years, and then you now have more students even coming to ask you for your materials. Even the students are the one asking you, have you ever thought of writing book? And when you say, well, maybe not, and then they ask you that, do you mind sharing your material? Now, if you were in my shoes, what would you think of? For me, that started giving me a signal that even my students are already thinking of writing something on what is my own material. And there are a lot of professionals, a lot of experts facing similar situation. I remember many years ago, I facilitated a training with another expert that I respect so much. And this expert had to tell me that, look, ensure that my material does not get to the hand of the students. So, in essence, this happens to the very best of experts out there. And one of the big problems is because we have not learned to take ownership of what is already rightfully ours. I can tell you something. From the PowerPoint to a book, you can get this thing done in 3 months. And my intention in this conversation, because after all of these concerns, after all of this fear, I knew that I had to do something about it. Either I now spend 8, 10, 15 years researching on what will help me to write this kind of volume, or I find some other solutions. And that was what I did. I simply had to take a deep dive into finding out how to author my book. Even though I do not have sufficient time at hand, I still do 9 to 5, and even after 5, I'm still busy with other engagements. Even though I still feel unworthy, like I don't have sufficient knowledge for what I want to present, write on. And even though as well, I still think that I do not even have the writing ability. When I read this kind of materials and I'm like, wow, this person must know how to write. Wow, this person must know how to write. And there are thousands of people like me out there. So all I'm looking for are the thousands of people like me, because I want to share with you something that made the difference for me, which helped me to author 2 books now. And this year, fantastic, using the principle of authoring 1 book in every 3 months. I want to hold as many people by the hand, and that is the motivation for having this conversation, this presentation, so that you can be a member of that series. Now, step 1, I hope you are ready for this. Step 1. As we share these steps, remember to share this video and just tag step. So step 1, now I will tell you the step, just reshare this and add the step to it, and remember to get into the comment box as well. So step 1, the first step you have to take is to conceive the idea. There has to be an idea. There has to be something that it doesn't mean that you are the best at, but something that you have found how to do. There has to be that thing. So you have to conceive the idea. The mistake many people make is this. Look, the author of this book conceived the idea. The author of this book didn't necessarily master all of this content before starting this journey. And the mistake people make is they want to master all of the content before even taking a step. No, you take your step and then you begin to master all of the content that will come down. I love sharing this story so much, how a professor was teaching students for a series of semesters, and nobody knew the qualification of this prof and all. But at the end of the day, perhaps there was a kind of screening, and they discovered that this professor was a scam. So they asked him, Prof, you taught your students so well over the years. How did you do it? And the professor simply mentioned that, look, I just had to be a step ahead of them. In essence, you don't need to have mastered all of this content you want to write. All you need to do is to be a step ahead. So once you conceive your idea, the next thing you have to do is do a form of mind mapping. In essence, somebody wants to, let's say that what you know how to do is how to design your own website, because you know how to design website. So you then see that these are the steps. So this is where your people want to get to, and then these are the steps. So step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, step 6. So you see all of these steps. Now it's a journey. So you do a mind mapping. You do like a ladder where you are able to outline that this is a field that I want my readers to have. This is what they want to have at the end of the day. See, these ideas, these strategies I'm sharing in this session is what would bet an experiential content that differs from the conventional writing style, which is built on theories. And I'm departing from that. Come to think of it, the books that have helped humanity so much over the years, over the centuries, have you noticed that they are built on experiential knowledge, where the author is guiding and admonishing, and it becomes an epistle. And then when you read, you have this feel of, this person is actually talking to me. Now, that's the kind of content that we are advocating for. It's the kind of content that is built on experiential, such that your readership, your readers are able to put themselves in your shoes, or are able to even imagine that you're actually addressing them. You need that one person idea, and then you just need to begin to have a conversation with that one person, because that one person represents 1,000 of people, millions of people, billions of people perhaps across the continent. And this is the approach that we are advocating for in helping people. So do a mind map. Begin to imagine what and what are the things that needs to be put together. For instance, recently I had this joke with my wife very early in the morning when we were preparing the children for school, and she had threatened me that you cannot prepare jollof rice, and we got into the conversation, and I started putting together all of the ingredients. Now, in putting all the ingredients together, I told her to excuse me in the kitchen. I decided to do the preparation. I got the ingredients together, and I was able to get the food done. And the children loved it. I had to ask them, how did they go in school with you? And they loved the meal so much. Now, the lesson is simple. It's just to put together all of these ingredients, the spices, the meal that becomes the book, which people would celebrate you for. It is for you to be able to put together all the ingredients. It's the first thing. You don't necessarily even need to know how to do it first, but you should be able to know the ingredients that will get you the meal that you want to put together in the book. And this is the lesson I need you to understand. So do a mind map. And then the next thing is, just as said earlier on, take a step at a time. Be ahead of your audience, just a step away. Don't be too far from your audience. Imagine this. Now, this old book, what it does is it gives us an impression that this author knows so much. And so, even people that relate, and this is just an example. When I go to consult this book, the natural me will tell me I need a 10-year program research to be able to write something similar. Because I'm looking at the volume and I'm like, how long will it take me to do this? I need to research. So what this book would successfully do, now this is just figurative. I'm not addressing this book in particular. But what this would eventually do is it gives a mind block that I cannot be an author. At least not now, not immediately. It gives a mind block. But when I'm able to see that I do not have to write all of this book. I just need to be a step ahead. Then it helps me to be able to live a day at a time with my research. Now, take an example of this again. This entire book, what it does again is similar to this. This is where I am. This is where the author is. And now, when I look at the book, I begin to think, when will I ever get here? And then the author's hand is also very far from me. So I begin to wonder, how do I put this thought together? How do I become an author? So it makes the whole thing complicated, and I'm like, well, I may not be able to achieve this. And this is how many experts give up on their dreams. Imagine if we have people that are sharing what they already know. I bet that we would have a better economy. And that's what we're advocating for. Share what you know. Share that little information that you think that you are not a masterpiece at. Just go on and get it shared. Now, this is what we're advocating for. A step ahead at a time. Now, these folk, the hand is is easily more connected to these folk. It's just being a step ahead at a time. Being a step ahead at a time. This is the secret if you are going to write things that would be experiential in nature, because you are close enough to the audience that you are addressing. You're close enough in your research, you're close enough in everything you do. And how do you bring all of these pieces together, all these pieces? Now, the way to do all of this, now this is where, in my own, from my own testimony, this is where Accent Radio, Accent Consults has continued to make the difference for me in my journey as a very well-respected author that is celebrated today. For you to be able to share your experience, your content, and your knowledge a step at a time, you need that platform where you're able to talk about it. And what Accent Radio has done is to create that studio for me where I can always work in, research on one thing at a time, present on one thing at a time, just as I'm speaking with you. Imagine if this is converted to a book. Would you fall in love with it? But if I have to put all of these thoughts together and I begin to pour them from the head, now this is what gives birth to theoretical knowledge. But in sharing with you, I am advising you, I'm giving you instructions and giving you a breakdown of how this whole thing is. I'm sure you'll fall in love with it. And imagine if this is put together in a book. Now, this is the secret that changes everything. The ability to walk into the studio, Accent Radio, and put together all of my content one at a time, and then for the Accent Consult team itself to then bring the content together, do a review of the content, begin to convert it for me. So while I do the speaking and it just looks so sweet around me, I'm able to talk about one thing at a time. They are able to put together all of these contents, convert them, and then I just get to repeat the process. Walk into the studio once in a week, twice in a week, and they focus on converting. Now, what this does for me again is, I reckon that I'm a busy folk. I just want to get this done, and I need to catch up a flight to Port Harcourt, which is indeed the truth. But once I'm done with this, they are able to get to work so that it eases me to be able to face my other daily activities while the brand Accent Consult does the conversion of what I have put together. And at the end of the day, they just only get to invite me after all these my thoughts have been put together. And what I do is to look through what they have done and then begin to do the pruning. So at the end of the day, I am able to put my content together within 3 months, and that's how I get to invite you for my book launch. And you are like, this guy is always releasing books. And the books usually turn out to be bestsellers within the industry that those books represent. Now, this is the secret. And the force behind the secret is Accent Radio and Accent Consult. I invite you to join those entities. I invite you to also test them out. Let's become co-authors. Let's become cherished authors. Let's become authors within the industry, making a difference and helping people with information that changes everything for them. I hope you've been, today has come very handy for you, and I hope you found it really helpful. Let's carry on with this conversation. Get to the comment box and also send us private emails. Let's continue this conversation. Thank you for having me once again. My name is Tayo Ogunyemi, and till we come your way again, do have a wonderful time and stay blessed. Thank you.